Hello, lovely people. Today I'm going to look at spices. Now, what are spices, you might ask? Um, Back in, I would say, 1600s or 1700s, we went and we took some ships and we basically sailed them a really, really long way. And we found these distant lands, and they had these lovely markets full of all of these exotic ingredients, and they all smelled really nice. So we all took them home, and then we took them all the way back, and then we basically just chucked them over our food. And what happened was the food started to taste really nice. So we thought, oh, this is some good stuff. So we got to keep doing this, and that's how the spice trade was started. So the fact is that all of these things, these spices, are generally things that we use in cooking because they make the food more aromatic. They increase the flavour. And subsequently, because flavour and smell are extremely related, these are also often really good materials to use in perfumery. Now, I've got this book here, which is Perfume by Jean-Claude Eellamy. I really recommend this book, by the way, if you're looking for a cheap book on perfumery that is really good. This is probably the best cheap book, which actually has some good info on perfumery. But Jean-Claude basically, he decides to split the spices into warm and cool. And this is, so warm would be cinnamon and cloves, and then cool is stuff like nutmeg, I think, and pepper. And I don't know why, because to me pepper's quite warm, but that just goes to show how you can actually kind of categorize materials really how you want. I mean, it's up to you. You have to categorize materials in a way that's useful to you. So actually in this video, I have not probably kept strictly to what spices are for this video on spices, and that's mostly because my collection of raw materials is not that big, so I don't have a need for massive categories that go over everything. I would rather kind of group things that make sense together, and then maybe in the future that will change. So what I've got at the moment is spices, is mostly actually kind of exotic resins. So I've got frankincense in here, I've got Eellamy, which is a tree resin, and I've also got labdanum, which is kind of a thick, it's an exotic smelling substance, and it's kind of taken from Mediterranean plants, essentially. And then I'm also going to look at pink pepper, which is a type of pepper, so that probably would actually be a spice. So yeah, let's go and have a look at them. Right then, so pepper, yeah, it's quite interesting. There are actually a fair few different types. You might have heard of green pepper, black pepper, pink, or even white pepper. But from what I can work out, black, green, and white pepper are all different ways, effectively, of preparing the same plant. Whereas pink pepper, on the other hand, is a completely different and unrelated species. So pink pepper comes from Peru and Brazil, whereas black pepper comes from India. Now, I did find this green pepper from Hermitage Oils, and that's quite interesting because green pepper is not offered very often. And this was super medicinal, and it smelled a little bit like eucalyptus, a bit like pine, and it was very much a top note. And then I also do have some black pepper, and black pepper is the kind of, it's the regular pepper that you would put on your cooking or your food. So the essential oil effectively smells, to be honest, pretty much the same. I would say that the essential oil for black pepper does smell a bit more oily, a bit more kind of terpene-like. But yeah, I thought pink pepper would be interesting to look at because it is actually used in perfumery. It is used a bit, but I don't think most people have smelled it, so I don't think, I think it's kind of interesting to know what it's actually like. So it's distilled from the fruits of this plant, and as I said, it's native to Peru. And this particular oil was manufactured by Albert Vier, and they are quite a reputed raw materials manufacturer, so I'm assuming that this oil would be fairly representative of a decent, quite a good quality oil as far as things go. So what I found was it was somewhere between a top note and a mid note, and at the high concentrations, it definitely was very medicinal, kind of sharp, that kind of thing. But as you lowered it, it became a lot more amenable, and the fruity side of it came out, and a very green side to it came about, or at least that was what I took from it. So for me, it reminded me a little bit of galbanum, which is a thing that just smells weird, so I'm not even going to try to explain it. And then it had kind of a facet of rhubarb. So yeah, it wasn't groundbreaking, you know, this stuff, but I thought, yeah, it could be useful, maybe, kind of cool. Anyway, another thing I looked at, which was also very much a top note, is Eellamy. Now this is a tree that is native to the Philippines, and it's got this this kind of resin, and that comes out of it, and you can collect it, and then you steam distill that to get the oil. And this oil contains a very high percentage of D-limonene, which is that classic citrus smelling aroma chemical. So if you've seen my video on citrus and you look at those oils, you find, for example, in grapefruit oil, lemon oil and orange oil, the major part of the whole oil is just made up of limonene, and then the different other things you put in completely change it into its own citrus type. So the point here is, because there's so much limonene in this Eellamy, it works very well as a kind of a fresh top note that would be maybe used in a similar way to citrus. And the other constituent that it's got is alpha-phelandrine, and this apparently is actually very unstable. So what could happen is the smell, I guess, changes over time because this molecule breaks down. Apparently antioxidants can help with that, but obviously that's, you know, just, it's going to slow it down a bit, right? But it's not going to fix the problem. So that's an issue that you want to keep an eye on, you know, if you're going to use Eellamy, just beware. Now, another resin that comes from a tree is frankincense. This is probably very well known just because it's associated with use in religion, and it's been used as a commodity for burning as incense for centuries. But frankincense, what is interesting is there's lots of different species. So the potential for variety in the smell of the final product is obviously quite large. Now, you can extract it in different ways. This particular one is a CO2 extraction, which is where you're basically using liquefied carbon dioxide as a solvent. Now, this frankincense in particular was the Coterii species, so I don't know how that differs from the other ones. I'm guessing somehow. But what it actually smelled like was, in the beginning, it was quite fresh and peppery, a bit lemony, a little bit spicy, and that was quite impactful. So as a top note in that sense, it definitely has a strong effect. But then after a short amount of time, that top note element goes, and then what you're left with is quite substantial, but it's very faint and very subtle, and that is actually the smell of the resin, the tears of resin itself. So if you've ever had frankincense resin and tried burning it on charcoal, for example, it's more that kind of smell. So it's definitely interesting in this case that the actual oil changes over, like, its character changes quite drastically over the course of its evaporation profile. Finally, we have labdanum. Now, I would say labdanum is probably one of the most important materials in perfumery. It's a plant that is found in the Mediterranean, and then you extract it, I think usually with ethanol, but again, there are lots of different ways you can prepare it. And then that is a very thick brown gooey substance, and it acts somewhere between, I would say, a base and a mid note. And the reason it's so useful is it can be used in a lot of different accords. So you can use it in leather accords, and that's because of some of the phenolic constituents that it has. You can use it in moss or forest accords. It does have some evernyl, which is the main constituent of oak moss, which I guess is why that would make sense. You can use it in oriental accords because it does have an exotic facet, kind of an exotic feel to it. But also it is a core component of Chypre accords, and that's a famous type of accord which is based off the island of Cyprus. So that is quite important in classical perfumery, and then it's also a key constituent for basically a very simple amber accord. So what you can do is you can take vanillin and labdanum and mix them together, and that forms a very rudimentary amber accord. So yeah, it's really useful stuff. So in terms of how it smelled, I would say it's very warm. It's kind of almost honey, like a bit like molasses, kind of sweet, but it's definitely very unique. It's not exactly like anything else. Yeah, I would say it's kind of a brown in a sense, in terms of a material, in the sense that it's got so many of these different ingredients that it does end up, you know, with this very unique fingerprint in its smell, but it is a mess. You know, you can't pick out any distinct things from it. If you look at the ingredients, you do notice there's ambrox in there, which is an amber odorant, right? You find raspberry ketone, and you do get a bit of this kind of fruitiness. You find jasmolactone, you find a load of different terpenes. So the point is, there's no real, I guess it's not really worth looking into it. It is what it is. The best thing to do is just to get some. If you were going to get any materials in perfumery, I would recommend this definitely as one of the first ones that you buy, because it isn't too expensive, and it's definitely very useful. Right then, so that is it. Yeah, if you liked this video or found it interesting, please let me know, because it's good to know if people actually find this interesting or not. And if you didn't find it interesting, then also let me know, because it's good to know if people don't find this stuff interesting. But yeah, I'm not gonna do any more videos on naturals for a while. But what I am going to do is hopefully some other stuff about perfumery. I mean, I've done quite a lot of videos now on the same format, so, you know, it'd be good to actually talk about what, you know, if you want to learn to make perfume, basically what do you have to do? Like, what do you need to buy? What do you have to do? If you press subscribe, basically you'll get a video soonish in your inbox telling you all of this good stuff, so press subscribe.